The red thread. The first victim was found in his study, slumped over his desk. His throat had been slit, but not in the usual way. Someone had stitched it back together with a thick, crimson thread. The wound was sealed, his head eerily tilted, as if he was still trying to speak. On the wall, written in his own blood, he spread lies. The second night, Detective Olivia Mercer stood over the next body, her stomach twisting. A woman posed carefully in her bed. Her fingers were missing, severed cleanly at the knuckle. No blood on the sheets, no forced entry, only a single note, pinned to her pillow with a needle. She took what wasn't hers. The pattern. Olivia reviewed the victims. The first, a corrupt journalist, known for destroying lives with false stories. The second, a wealthy thief, who ruined families by stealing more than just money. Both had suffered a punishment that fit their crimes. Someone was delivering judgment, not just killing, taking. The third night, Olivia couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. At 3 a.m., she woke to an eerie stillness. And then, a whisper, "What have you taken?" Her breath caught in her throat, because she knew, years ago, she had tampered with evidence. A man had gone to prison, an innocent man. She had taken his freedom. Now, the room grew colder. A shadow unraveled from the darkness, tall, faceless, holding a needle and thread. And then, it lunged. The next day, they found Olivia in her home. No forced entry, no struggle, but her mouth was sewn shut, and on the wall, written in deep, jagged letters, "She took justice. Now she speaks nitrogen monoxide more." The Echo Man. The first victim was found in his apartment, his body twisted and broken, mouth stretched in a silent scream. No fingerprints, no signs of forced entry, just a message on the mirror, written in his own blood. He repeats what you fear. The second night, Detective Ryan Carter didn't believe in ghosts. Murders had reasons, killers had motives. But when the second victim was found, a woman, eyes gouged out, hands clutching her own throat, he felt a chill crawl up his spine. Her blood had painted the same message across her bedroom wall. And her final voicemail, a whispering, warped version of her own voice, saying, "He's inside." The connection. Ryan dug into their pasts. Each victim had one thing in common: they had all confessed their greatest fears to someone recently. The first, a childhood terror of his bones being broken. The second, a fear of going blind, of losing control. And then, their fears became their deaths. The third night, at 3 a.m., Ryan's phone buzzed. A voicemail. He hesitated, then pressed play. It was his own voice. A perfect, distorted echo. "You know what scares you the most, don't you?" His heart pounded. Because he did. He wasn't afraid of death, not of pain, but of losing himself, of being forgotten. He checked the mirror, and behind him, in the darkness, something moved. The final night, Ryan tried to escape, checked into a motel across town, left his phone behind, but at 3 a.m., the TV flickered on. Static. Then, a voice, his own voice. "You can't run from me." He turned, and saw himself standing in the doorway. Not a reflection, not a shadow. A perfect copy, grinning, its eyes black holes, its mouth stretching wider than humanly possible. It took a step forward, and Ryan forgot how to scream. The next day, they found him in the motel room, but it wasn't really him, not anymore. His face was empty, expression frozen in a wide, unnatural grin. And on the wall, in his own handwriting, he repeats what you fear. The Bone Collector. The children of Raven's Hollow had a rhyme. If you see the blackbird fly, close your eyes or say goodbye. Step too close, you'll hear the call. Then he'll take your bones and all. For decades, people disappeared near the old Blackwood Cemetery. Some were last seen walking its foggy paths at dusk. Others simply vanished from their homes, doors still locked from the inside. Their bodies were never found. Detective Laura Grayson didn't believe in ghost stories. When another resident, Matthew Kane, a local teacher, vanished without a trace, she was determined to uncover the truth. Her investigation led her to the Blackwood family crypt, a towering mausoleum at the cemetery's heart. The Blackwoods had been gravediggers for generations, their bloodline stretching back to the town's founding. The last of them, Edgar Blackwood, had died over a century ago, yet fresh footprints led to the crypt's entrance. Inside, the air was thick with decay. Dust-coated coffins lined the walls, but the real horror lay below. A hidden staircase led Laura into a cavernous chamber where hundreds of bones were stacked in unnatural, patterned spirals, towers, grotesque sculptures. In the center stood a wooden chair. Strapped to it was Matthew Kane. He was alive, but barely. His skin sunken, his eyes wild with terror. His fingers had been meticulously removed, the wounds blackened as if burned. Then came the whisper, "You shouldn't be here." Laura spun around, gun raised. A figure emerged from the shadows, impossibly tall, its face obscured by a black veil. It moved without sound, its skeletal fingers curling in the air. "You take from the earth," it rasped. "I take from you." Before Laura could react, the figure moved. Darkness swallowed her, her limbs frozen as something cold traced her spine. The next morning, two things were found at the cemetery: Matthew Kane, missing his hands but alive, and a new sculpture in the bone chamber crafted from Laura Grayson's skeleton, posed as if she were still reaching for her gun.